Okay, so it's a dreary shit day. And I've made this part 2 first, so let's hope it all makes sense and works out. Anyway, here I am in the old machine, Ford Fairlane. This is like Australia's best answer to the Lincoln Town car. And there's another one that's slightly higher called the LTD, and it basically speaking, different mag wheels, slightly change the grille, and have a bit more, white blooming tail lights where they used to have red or whatever. Bugger all change with an extra $10,000 extra cost. I shit you not. So a lot of people who want a better one go for this because the LTD is just overpriced and barely any different, to be honest. Yeah, so anyway, I have gone and taken the seat out, and I have had some brilliant results with this. Some vehicles you won't need to take the seat out. In the States you have the Toyota Matrix, or Toyota Corolla Matrix as it's technically called, and the rebadged GM version called the Pontiac Vibe, which is for all intensive purposes just a Toyota with a Pontiac badge on it. Anyway, they will have a front seat that folds down, just like the Hyundai van I've got, where the seat will fold right back like that. I know the back seats will fold flat too, and maybe even the front seats, although I've never tried. And you've got other things like the PT Cruiser, Chrysler PT Cruiser, that has seats fold. There's a lot of vehicles that have seats fold flat. Unfortunately, the old Fords here ain't one of them. In fact, the Fords here are so shit that the station wagon, they're very, very good vehicle because they've had to compete with Japanese vehicles. And so they just had to bring the quality up well above what you'd expect in the US. But the trouble is the station wagons, unlike a lot of your Chevs and that in the US, like your old Chev Caprice from the, late 70s right through to the mid-90s and stuff like that, your big, huge, big station wagons. The wagons here, the Fords at least, the bloody back seat won't fold flat with the rest of the bloomin' cargo area. And it's bullshit. And even they've got a four-wheel drive version, which takes a similar drivetrain to what this has got, and or later models of this, and basically that doesn't do it either. Even though we're talking about things that are 2010 and stuff like that, and it's not the best. So anyway. On top of that, these damn Fords, they don't have seats that fold flat either. You got a thing like this on this one. You won't have this on the base model, but this is the lumbar support. But you got a similar one that's on the other side of me here. Just trust me, it's down there, and that'll angle the seat, and the seat will get an angle of about that much, and that's it. So realistically, you got to get it out. And there it is sitting out there. Sometimes you get lucky if you got older vehicles, it'll be bolts. It'll be ½ inch or some bullshit. With a lot of these other ones, and I believe even the Toyota Matrix and the Pontiac Vibe are the same as this, and I think this is fairly common these days. That's a T50 star bit. T50 star bit. Now you can get like a hex key type situation that'll allow you to take these out. You can get socket ones, and let me tell you, I took it out with the hex key type thing, and it took me fucking ages. And there's something else I should mention with all these. Now you notice a very fine thread. I believe the reason for that, in part, this is twice as fine as any bolt you'll get from the bloomin' hardware store. I believe the reason for that in part is to do with waterproofing. And you say, what do you mean? Well, notice how that looks a bit funny there from where my fingernail is on? Yeah, that's because that was under the vehicle. Going rusty, getting covered in mud. Yeah. if you can get under the vehicle, give it a little rub with a wire brush, spray with some WD-40, but at least try to spray with WD-40 from above. Because if you can't get these out, or you strip the thread trying to get it out, you're going to have to do it with a hacksaw. Oh, fuck the hacksaw, I've got an angle grinder. Yeah, well, you've also got carpet. And sometimes there will be, at least in the older ones in the 80s, there's bitumen underneath that frickin' carpet. And you got more carpet, and you got plastic trims. Well, plastic trims, this has got a bit of leather in it. Oh, that by the way, that's an interesting feature that only comes with the high-end model. The base model would never give you this little hidey spot. And that's pretty odd when you find it for the first time. Anyway, they will take a bit to get out. Don't kid yourself, it is going to need WD-40. Don't waste your time. Make sure you do anything. Old motor oil, penetrating, or just something there to lubricate it, because it will be a bitch. And in case mud under the vehicle isn't a problem, well, there might be crumbs and bullshit, and just the general malaise of shit you get from spilling your coffee down the side there 10 times because they give you the shittest coffee holder known to man, or shittest cup holder known to man, and all the other fluff and bits and grass and God knows what gets in here. I was surprised to find that it seems we have had a young girl, as the previous owners have anyway, and a lot of hair clips there, and a lot of Pokemon bits and pieces, and a lot of coins too. So anyway, in the process of all this, you're going to need to get the back seat out. Not a big deal. These are 60-40 split fold rear seats. There's your bracket for it. You can see. Just have a little button on the top, and it comes down. Those holes there, that's the ones that it was. Hinges were bolted into. Getting seats out, back seats, you're actually best to get the bottom piece out first and then the back. Now, you will have various different things. Some of the old Chevs have got a bit of wire, and you've got to basically, there's your seat there, you've got to basically punch in like just below where your knees are, and you punch in and there'll be a bit of wire into a slot that looks like that. And by pushing it in, it will sort of jump back out of it. And some of them have got a slot like that with like a little tab on it. So you got a little tab, and you got to flick the little tab, and it'll release it. A lot of them, hang on a second, I'll get out of this blasted seat. Oh yeah! A lot of them, you just give them a good pull up, and that's exactly what happened with this one. And you might be able to see little bits in there, but basically, you give it a good pull up, and out she comes. These are little bits of wire that slot into that. And all I basically done was got in here, and you pull, and you'll realise that it's sort of holding it a certain point, because this will flex easier than this will. So once you work out where that point is that it's holding, get your hands under there and give it a good yank. They're different for every car. There's shitloads of YouTube videos telling you how to get them all out. And yeah. So anyway, I have gone and measured all of this. I had a propane tank in there because this was a propane conversion vehicle, so I had to get that out and not a factory fitted. And yeah, once again, yeah, some people, oh man, they're not weld nuts on the bottom, and I ended up giving up and cutting it out with a blooming reciprocating saw. I could only get one out of four. But anyway, proof's in the pudding with all of this stuff. So, here's the actual length I had from the back in there, like where your trunk door is, boot door, whatever you want to call the damn thing, to up here near the airbag. 10'4" to 10'5", give or take an inch there, which is 3,150 mil. That's 3.15 meters. Now, width-wise, how are you going to know that you're going to fit in a bed here, and you're going to be able to fit in here. Well, it's pretty easy, isn't it? Look, my hips are fitting on the seat. In fact, there's probably an inch either side. You know, now I'm not necessarily a fat ass, and I do have the hips of a man because I am a man, but there is also more space here for seatbelt, and you know, this is the one here where your fucking wallet drops out, and then or your little, as you're going through the what's his name, the the boom gates of the car park, you know, you just to get your card to put it in the machine again. But basically, if your hips are fitting in the seat, well, of course your ass is going to fit in here. Furthermore, when you actually look at this, your head's going to be here, especially if you're 6'2" like me, one of only 3%, the upper 3% of the male height worldwide. If your head's here and you're 6'2" like me, your hips are going to be down here past the centre console, so it's not going to be an issue anyway. And I mean, unless, you know, and if you are a woman and you're well built lass, then yeah, well, yeah, just take it into consideration that you know, this extra distance you get between the center console and that, you're going to get extra room. Other things I should point out, because of the way it is with this vehicle, is not all of them are going to have that big hump there. Now, see, after you get past that point there, and you can see that the sand insulation in the back there, that drops down. You know what this hump's for? Rear-wheel drive axle. You won't have that in front-wheel drive. You know what this big hump here is? Tail shaft, which you also won't have in rear-wheel drive. Keep that in mind. Now, I know in the States you got a lot of front-wheel drive vehicles, but a few of your larger ones, like your Lincoln Town Car and, oh, I think maybe your Grand Marquis and stuff like that, Mercury Grand Marquis, they're probably rear-wheel drive. I know your Crown Vic is. So keep that in mind, that you're going to be elevated slightly if it's a rear-wheel drive vehicle. Here in Australia, most stuff has been rear-wheel drive, where in the States you converted to front-wheel drive in the 80s. And only now, especially with all this Asian stuff, we're getting a lot, and smaller vehicles, we're getting a lot of front-wheel drive. And even the G6 I have now, the 2008 model, and even the base model that my parents have got, which is 2011, they're still rear-wheel drive. So, anyway, that's just something to take into account, that either, you know, you're going to have a bit of storage space under your bed, or you're going to be higher than you might have otherwise been. You know, in terms of, you know, what I'm saying is you've got to engineer around this bullshit, and also around that bullshit, because when you look at things like the van, which is front-wheel drive, the Hyundai van I've got, you ain't going to have this in there, but you don't. It's a flat floor. Well, you know, the floor is on an angle, but the floor is like, you can lay this down and it'll be straight the whole damn way, because it's a flat floor, even though the whole lot's tilted on about a 15-degree angle from the back to the front, which, if you had it fully loaded with people, would probably actually become level again. But all you've really got at the back is you've just got your individual, like your shock or your strut and your coil spring, and then another one on the other side, and there's no axle join the two of them, because it doesn't need to be. They're just like free-rolling wheels with a set of brakes on them, you know. So that's something to take into account, and you know, this might give you extra room. You might decide that you want a dual battery system, but you're a woman with wider hips, so you can't go lower than that, because your hips are going to come out part way into the center console here. Well, guess what? With the dip you've got there for the back passenger feet, that's enough to put like an 80 amp hour deep cycle battery in, because it's actually tall enough, you know. Now, in some of the tighter vehicles, this will be a great idea. In some of the bigger vehicles, like a lot of the 4x4s we've got here, they actually put the deep cycle, when they do a dual battery system, the deep cycle's under the hood. You can't always fit it in. It is really a model for model type thing, if you're going to fit it in. You might want to have it up here, but you might have other ideas. You might decide you are going to have, you know, a blooming few gallon water container up there. You might decide you want to stuff your clothes up there because you can open the door and you can get to your clothes from there, sort of thing. But, you know, I don't know. It all depends on horses for courses, however you want to design it. But in terms of taking these out, if you want to take the centre console out, yeah, you can with some. It all depends on the vehicle. But I'll tell you something that's very common in these vehicles. A lot of them, you got a centre light. Being the high-end one, this thing's got fucking lights everywhere. There's something like 13 lights. There's one up there. You've got a map reading light each in the back. You've got one in the door. You've got that there, one in the front door. These two, and one behind. So this thing's absolutely loaded to the hilt with lights. But that's beside the point. That's just me bragging again. There's a light there. You're going to have electrical cables that you've at least got to cut off and deal with. But the other thing is, there is heater vent. So inside all this, underneath this, there's going to be a heater vent that's come down from the dash all through. So you're going to have to block off that heater vent and at least do something with those light wires, which is probably no big a deal. You could just cut them off and put a bit of tape around them, no big deal. But just keep that in mind. Some of these are more, you've got a real separate part, and it's almost, the console is separate from the gear. So with this, I believe it's all the one piece. I also think that's your bolt for it there, and I think there's another one jammed down by my seatbelt there as well. It's another one you might want to look up because some people take the centre consoles out, and there's also things on how to do that, just as there is on how to take seats out and back seats and everything like that. My idea is that you know, you would have a bed on this side, and behind the driver's seat, and yes, this is a right-hand drive vehicle, this is Australia, you could actually have like a porta potty, but you couldn't just drop it straight on here because look, it's all domed and curved and bullshit. There's some of that bitumen I was talking about. It's like a bitumen sheet they put on, helps with waterproofing and everything. You could put a porta potty, but you couldn't put it on an unlevel surface, so you'd need like plywood or something. And even if it just ends up being bits of wood that fit to the right curve, and you just use old floorboards or old pallet wood planks, so long as they're fairly consistent thickness and the thing's not rocking around on it from unlevel, you know, different thickness planks, use all the same type of plank, you should be fine anyway. Another thing I have thought of, over here they can get a little bit fussy on modifications on vehicles now, especially if they catch you doing big burnouts. With the Trudjet van, I'm sort of alright because the seats are built to take out with no bolts. But to do this, might, you know, to actually get the bolts out might be a little bit less legal. Although it's common in vans that if they register them and they take the seats out and then they get them registered and get the tags on them, that you know, it's taken as how it is then. So it's not that big a deal, so long as you don't go and put the seats all back in again. There's license restrictions on how many seats you can have in a vehicle before you need to have a bus license or whatever, or you know, something like that. So anyway, yeah, the long and short of it is that this, if you did have worries with it, I reckon you can make up a fake back seat by having basically rods that run along, and you get a blanket, right, and you get a bit of ribbon, you know, and so you have your ribbon, this is actually strapping, but you have your blanket and you sew your ribbon to the back of it like that, and you sew either side, and then you have a piece of rod, or you can actually have a bit of nylon string, and I suggest using a chopstick with a hole drilled in it, or a pencil, or something like that to get it up there. The whole thing of using what everyone says, oh, you know, you use a safety pin, yeah, and then the fucking thing unlatches as you're trying to thread the blasted string up, and it's bullshit. So you have that, and you have like the blanket, but you have one sewn there, so it lines up with about there. and another one at the bottom, but not right at ground level, at about where the seat would be. So if you can hold that string, or even that solid bit of like wire, not actual rod, but you know, thick wire, at that height and that height, you give the fake look of a seat covered with a blanket. So if you've got a seat that'll fold flat, unlike this Ford, if it's like a Hyundai seat or PT Cruiser or something, like one of those seats that just folds, and you take the headrest off and the seat will just come up to here, and it folds flat there, and you have this fake seat set up with a blanket with ribbon sewn on the back and rods or string put through to give it that fake shape of a seat, you can go right through a breathalyzer test with a cop leaning in your fucking window, and he'll think you've got a blanket on the back seat and you've got this one folded flat, and there is no bullshit of you have modified this vehicle. Just so long as, of course, your bed frame is in 2 bits or 3 bits and all goes back in the trunk, in the boot. And they would never know. And you go right through with them leaning in your frickin' window giving you a breathalyzer test, and they'd never know. And that's something that I thought I also wanted to throw in to help those of you out there who are more interested in making your life practical than putting up with a whole heap of fussy-ass, stupid bloody bureaucracy that doesn't really matter that much when you only have one person in the car and one perfectly good bloody driver's seat with the appropriate safety attachments. This is one of the earlier ones that's got the adjustable blimmin' belt height on it too. Not that you can see it too well with all the blimmin' light in the back there. Yeah, anyway, too much light from outside to even show it properly. Anyway, by the way, independent rear suspension, all your buttons with all your electric windows in, 53 buttons in the cabin, 13 interior lights, independent rear suspension. And when do you think this thing was built? 1999. Yeah, we're a little bit ahead of what you get in the States. And the reason is that Ford either competes with all this Japanese stuff, or they just don't make it in Australia. And they know how the market runs in the US. They know they can sell you shit and call it chocolate cake and you'll buy it. But over here, things are a little bit different. Anyway, the width I got for there, 2'1" or 635 mil, which is 0.63 of a metre. And yeah, just thought I'd throw that in while I was holding on to this bit of paper there. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with, you know, I reckon you could damn near have a little mini fridge, like one of the Dometic CF18, the 18-litre fridge underneath there, although I don't really recommend Dometic. I recommend Engel any day of the damn week over Dometic, because I've had a couple of Dometics and they don't fucking play ball. And yet Engels will never die. Having said that, the Engel Peltier fridge, the little one, you're not supposed to run it for any more than 10 hours at a time, because I think the Peltier gets too hot for the type of plastic they got. So yeah, you might want to think of an actual compressor Engel versus a Dometic. And a Dometic, you know, they're pretty common, but they're also, you know, I've had a few issues, and I'm not the only one apparently with the Dometics, but yeah, you could fit a little fridge under there, deep cycle battery. Maybe you don't have a fridge, maybe you want the deep cycle battery there. Word of advice on putting deep cycle batteries in without making a whole shitstorm. Now the van, they actually went through the fender and they come in by taking this cover off. This one here, seeing the stupid idiots who fixed the fender when I hit a roo after I'd only owned it for 6 weeks. They never put the fucking carpet in properly, the dickheads. That's the ECU right there. So you got a fairly substantial bit of wiring and whatnot. And the dumb bastards, they never tuck the friggin' carpet back in correctly. But that's what you pay a couple of $1,000 for them to do, is fuck with your CD player, change all your station settings, and then never put the carpet back in correctly. and fuck with your antenna as well. Stupid idiots. They done more stuff to me bloody audio system than they done fix-ups on the bloody panels, the dickheads. Anyway, that's what you get sometimes. Anyway, getting to the point, some vehicle, now these are all automatic. That's the only option you got because it's the high end and that's, you know, just what they expect. Some of them you have manuals for as well. Now, there's an intriguing little thing about getting cables in. You don't need to pull the dash out, do any stupid thing. Not always. I know it's not in the most convenient spot, but you can probably work out a way using zip ties to keep it out of the way or even tuck it under the carpet. You often enough will have, you got your accelerator, your brake, and if it's available in manual, you may well have, especially if there's several, well, you know, I think even if there's any manuals, it all depends on the manufacturer, but it's not uncommon, and I've seen it in a Nissan I used to have. They actually have a spot for the clutch pedal to go through the firewall, held in by 2 Phillips head screws. You take that out, and that's your hole for your cables. You didn't have to cut any holes. You didn't have to repaint where you've cut to stop it rusting. All you done was take 2 Phillips head screws out. And they actually jammed so far up that it wasn't like the carpet ended before it even got there to where the pedals went through. So I just took the 2 screws out and that was it. Job done. You know, it was bloody easy. Ran the cables through. Now they're so high up that you can probably zip tie it to something under the dash there and at least keep it up, you know, console height or something. And then, you know, yeah, by the way, that's the switch there. Gasoline, propane. It's a conversion switch. Yeah, that would have taken a bit of effort to get that blooming switch in there. But anyway, I think that's about it anyway. And I sort of, this car's a dead horse regardless. It's probably going to end up in the crusher in a couple of months. So I thought I'd just pull it apart to sort of prove the point, although I wouldn't do it on this. The one thing I will also mention in closing is that if you have a bed here and you think it's going to go straight through, you've got your wheel arch in the way. So, hang on a second, I'll get in the back here again. Watch this. It's one of those little Christmas tree things, as they call it. Oh, you bitch. There you go. So there's the shocks. So in the process of that, like you often have to with the van, you're going to have to go sideways. So they've actually whacked sheet metal in behind that. So your bed, instead of being absolutely straight like that, you're going to have to go on a slight angle. So yeah. But I really think with a bed on the passenger side and a porta potty behind the driver's seat, you got your bed, you got your toilet, right? Then you can have your roof rack with your solar shower on, and maybe in the trunk in a plastic tub that's a sealed tub. Maybe you got one of those spare tyre mounts that'll go on the back, and you put it on that, or you've got another container, or you got a frickin' toolbox mounted. I don't know how you want to do it. You know, you might have one of those, like an all-the-way round shower curtain made out of polyester fabric that doesn't rot, and that gives you your place to have your shower. I know it's pouring on the ground, but, you know, it's an option with your solar hot water system on your roof rack. You got a shower, you got a toilet, and you got a bed. And you can have your little cook stove, your little bloomin' what's his name, and all that, your little table, your little seal, all that. Just throw it in the trunk. You're going to need this side of the trunk, or the passenger side of the trunk, to put your feet. But honestly, 10'4", 10'5". How many people exist over fucking 6'8"? Almost nobody is more than 6'8" unless you're actually classified as a giant, you know. So there you go. You know, you're gonna be right. I sort of looked at all this too. There's another aspect. Why would you want to sleep in there and not up here? Well, first of all, you can crack the windows open to get a bit of ventilation through. So you can breathe by having the windows down a little bit. And so you want to be up this end where the air circulates, not huffing away your own blooming breath inside the back there. Second of all, if anything ever stuffs up with a fuel tank, where's the first place the fumes usually come into? Yeah, into the back. Great, isn't it? Yeah. What's the other aspect to this? If you lay on your side, are you going to fit between here and here? Now, if it's front-wheel drive, you probably will fit between here and here. If you're a broad-shouldered man like me, and you've got a rear-wheel drive, you've got no way in hell. Having said that, when I stick my two legs together at night, or should I say, my two ankles together, there to there is about a foot wide, which is easily going to fit in a space that's 2 foot. So there you go. These bastards, it's sitting on a bit of an angle there. $500. No, hang on. I got $500 for the pair. They're $800 each. They're a failed design, and you end up burning them out. But only with this one. The base model's fine, but the long wheelbase, they're different in the long wheelbase, and they keep destroying themselves. Anyway, I think I've, yeah, pretty much covered it all. And if you do get a higher end vehicle, a long wheelbase, you're going to have more length, which will be more room to fit things in, but you might not need that. And what you also get in some vehicles is the coat hooks. Now, a lot of vehicles have those anyway, but a great place to string your blooming curtain, isn't it? What I would recommend doing, though, is getting tint on everything, then getting cardboard that'll fit in there, and then glue it to Reflectix on the back, and then put Reflectix in your windscreen. Who's going to suspect people camping in a van? Well, there's quite a chance if it's a big van and they can see certain things, and they're not so stealth camping in a van, and it's obvious to those who know, especially security guards and cops. Who's going to be stealth camping in a station wagon? Well, not many, because it means you're pretty hard up. But it's still quite easily possible for a lot of people, especially in your bigger American vehicles that do actually fold properly flat. And someone I know was in a Ford with the damn dumbass one like the other 97 model I've got, where the things don't fold flat, and they were sleeping in it. They saw a homeless person doing that. This was someone was telling me this only a couple of days ago. And then, how many homeless people are going to sleep in a sedan? Fuck all. Very few. Why? Because it's considered damn near impossible. Why? Because none of them really do exactly what I've told you to do, because it's a bit of a vehicle modification, and it's a very strange idea that doesn't involve leaning the front seat back, but instead it involves ripping seats right out to give you a lot more room and a lot more practicality, and allow you to lay on your side, lay on your back, lay on your front, and stand on your damn head if you need to. Well, not really, because the roof isn't big enough, but you get what I'm saying. It's if they suspect people stealth camping, they're going to suspect a van first, a wagon second, but really not suspect a friggin' sedan. And that makes it so much more stealth, because most people think it is just about impossible to sleep in a sedan unless you're like bloody 4'10" or something, you know. So anyway, that's just my thoughts on all of that.